Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. Shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today, where we'll be relaxing as per usual. And if you can tell from today's episode title, we'll be talking about Button City, which is a game. If you might be like, hey, I didn't know you played Button City. When do you do that? It's actually something I've been playing on my stream, my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/deardarling, where I recently finished it up today. So yeah, you can watch me play in the previous VODs and all that. The VODs will be uploaded to YouTube, but there's always a 1 week delay. So best to go check them out on Twitch themselves if you want to see them live. But hello everyone, we're now in Fawnhallow. It's 5:28 PM on Sunday, December 29th, 2024. So yes, if you're confused, like if you're new here, I am just a random person who just talks about stuff every single day, and today's topic is Button City. I'm not recreating anything in Button City or anything like that. This is not a very rigorous review. This is just like my sort of random thoughts on it here and there. But on the whole, I enjoyed it. I think I would summarize it as it being a very cozy, comfy, low stakes game. And if you like cozy games, I think you'll love Button City. It's very low stakes. It's cozy, it's cute, it's comfy. Like that's very much what they're going for, and I think in that regard they knock it out of the park. It very much sort of taps nicely into sort of sense of childhood nostalgia of like, you know, hanging out with your friends, getting up to sort of like little hijinks here and there, trying to go on these big adventures and being very melodramatic. Excuse me about it at the same time. They have cute little mini games which you can play as well. Just small little arcade funs. Are they particularly deep or, you know, mechanically intensive? No, they're not. They're very simple. They're straightforward, and I think that's fine because that's really what it's trying to be. It's trying to tap into the very sort of the specific genre of comfiness. Of, you know, there's not stuff that you had to put like your mind really to. It's not like you're playing a very intense, difficult cozy game. Like you're not playing like an intense platform or anything. There's no mechanics really at play here. There's always like an easy mode if you need it. I think I'm not actually sure if that's true. That might not be true for some of the arcade mini games, but still. What would I say are some sort of like on the lesser good sides about it? I would probably say that it is a bit tedious at times. I think the main thing I can think of is the fact that almost every single quest in this game or side quest is some sort of variant of a fetch quest where you just need to sort of go back and forth between two NPCs, from one to the other, talking and collecting things, etc, back and forth, which it's fine because there's not much more room to do anything like more intensive, I think, for a quest, but it does get a little bit tiresome after a while, I would say. Part of me was like, I wish there was just a little bit more depth, because, you know, some of them were fun, like the treasure hunt quest, essentially is how I describe it, is a fun one. But a lot of them really are just sort of going back and forth between things. Part of it is because they do want you to engage and fall in love with the characters, and I think a lot of the characters are very charming as well. But at the same time, I would say because of its sort of comfy nature, it sometimes pulls back a bit of going into like much more sort of juicy, crunchy stuff, I suppose, with a character exploration, which I'm not, you know, again, it's a choice. And I'm not saying it's a right or wrong choice, but, you know, it will certainly either appeal to you or not appeal to you, depending on how much you like comfiness, I suppose, in a game. Because there isn't really much of a challenge in the game by design. So you just gotta think to yourself, like, is that something that you want or is that something you don't want? I don't know. I can't answer that for you. So it's not a game I would like sweepingly recommend everyone should try this at some point. But I'm like, if you're looking for a cozy, comfy, nostalgic experience, then I think it's a good one to sort of tap into. I think there could also be some sort of nice little like quality of life things about the place. Because it's so sort of comfy and you sort of just like walk everywhere. But some of the layouts are designed that you have to go back and forth between a lot and requires a lot of walking, which is very tedious in this sort of game where you can't sprint or anything. You can only teleport to the main hub. You can't teleport like to the exact location you want to go to, which seems like a shame. But it's also very difficult to keep track of every single NPC in the game. There have been times where they're just like, oh, you need to go, I think the most recent one was like, you need to talk to Parsley, and I'm like, I have no idea who Parsley is. So maybe just like something small like an address book or something would have been cool, just to see like, oh yeah, that's this person, this is where you can find them. But yeah, I guess all bets are off now spoiler wise when it comes to Button City. And I'll sort of dive more in depth into things. I don't think Button City's like, its story is like one where you should be too worried if you get spoiled about. It's a very sort of classic story in my opinion. It's a thing where I was like, I can see this like as, you know, like a morning show and like a Saturday morning cartoon or something. It's like, oh no, this is a one where you get introduced to them, and then, oh no, here's the plot point for this season. The Button City arcade is being shut down. Oh, you know, let's try and save it. Oh no, we can't. Oh yes, we can. Essentially, is basically the summary of a plot. But yeah, I think the mini games were like surprisingly cute and fun. I actually had a lot of fun doing the Raceway one, and I love rhythm games, so of course I love a rhythm game one. I think the MOBA style one is okay. I think it feels a bit like clunky at the same time, but maybe that's because I play a lot of MOBAs. I've played a lot of League of Legends. It's hard for me to make that comparison across again because it felt a bit difficult trying to, you know, attack and use the specials as I feel like it was intended, but who knows. Maybe I'm just like, I might just been bad at it, to be honest. So, which is fair, which is very fair. I would say, what else about it did I quite like? Let me think. I think the characters and cast were cute, you know. Like, it's very, very wholesome. Like, even the enemy, the rivals, quote, quote, were very, very wholesome. And the villain is, like, so cartoonishly evil that obviously there's not meant to be. Like, he's like, I think it even lampshades it in the game at some point, where it's just like, oh yeah, you might as well have, like, a curly mustache and twirl it. It very much is, like, on the nose, where he's like, oh, you know, I want all these bad things to happen, but these bad things are not, you know, these bad things are just more like, it's going to destroy the town you love. It's not going to be something like that. He's not going out murdering people or anything like that, shall we say. So everything is like quite safe in that regard. So honestly, probably a great game for kids to play as well. I think it's very family, like all ages accessible, which is nice. It's nice to have that sort of like comfiness behind it. But it was really fun, sort of like, I always enjoy going around talking to all these different NPCs, seeing like the sort of stories behind them as well. And I would say this is sort of like a back and forth thing, but Button City does give you like little glimpses into like some, I'm not sure if darker side is the right word, but like more of the troubles pervading behind these characters here and there, like and like obviously big spoilers, like Fennel, the main character's father, left at some point, and then there's this like kind of like trippy dream sequence where he has like a nightmare of like his mum being like, you're the reason he left. And I was like, whoa, okay, we're gonna get some like real serious like stuff in here, we're gonna get some emotional exploration. But then like it just does that like at one time, and then it just never is brought up again, which I think is a bit of a shame. But I also understand it because it's a choice at the end of the day. Like if it was a different game genre or something, I would be like, oh, you know, it's silly, they basically didn't develop their characters, they introduced this plot point, but like it only gives you like a tiny snapshot and then they don't explore it any further. But at the same time, Button City I don't think is going for, like, they don't want you to be in tears playing the game or something and feel like your heart is being like wrenched out or twisted for the pathos you have for this character. Obviously you can have sympathy and empathy for the characters and the things that they go through, but it's not there to like, I think, parade it as in a dramatic front and center. I think, in my opinion, that the game is meant to be much more cozier than that. It's meant to be like, yes, they have like there's some depth and trouble to some of these characters, but at the same time they're still all reunited in this community, and it's all very nice and, you know, friendly, right? It's comfy. As I say, it's a comfy game, and that's what they're going for. So it's not that I can't critique it, I suppose, on that, but I'm like, I think it wouldn't necessarily be the right fit if it's not in line with their vision, right? It's a sort of story you go into knowing that the protagonists are going to, you know, it's going to have a happy ending at the end. You know the protagonists are going to succeed. There's going to be so much maybe tougher like dramatic conversations in it, but at the end of the day you want them to win because that's like what is comfy, right? So yeah, I think it's right for the game, but also it does unfortunately leave it a little bit to be desired when it comes to a bit more depth, I think, behind the characters. I guess if anything, it's a bit of a shame to be able to say, hey, there is a bit of depth here, but you don't get to see much more behind it. You kind of had to make up your own interpretations of it. But the thing is, it can actually do like nice emotional exploration as well, because you're playing from the point of view of a child, and I think that often has very unique experiences of ways you can tell narratives and stories. Children tend to be rather innocent with their sort of worldview, and you know, having the story have them face something which is more of like this is something which you'll have to face in your life can give interesting perspectives on it. Like I feel, you know, this is like the main crux of the spoilers, but the conversation that Fennel had with Mr. Button was really nice. Whereas it sort of like explores the ideas of like, as you get older, you'll eventually things will have to be let go, things will have to be given up, things will change. And, you know, Fennel just being like, that's sad, essentially. But I think it was a nice sort of like conversation, you know, this perspective of like this older man who's obviously lived most of his life and seen things come and go, and Fennel, who hasn't had to do too much about it yet. Well, actually, that's not true, I suppose, if his father left, but again, that's sort of like swept under the rug very quickly. It's nice to see that, and like all the morals in the story are very sort of like heartwarming in a very sort of like saccharinely safe way, you know, like, oh, Lavender's like too scared to be herself and like do this Botswana stuff, she's so embarrassed by it, and then like Fennel is just so brazenly forward, being like, yeah, let's do it, I'll do it with you, and yeah, and then she gets more confidence from it. And then Sorrel just like has a lot, and she feels like she's like losing like herself, and like this sort of idea of exploration of envy, of jealousy, and then she apologizes and then it's fine. And Chive, well, I mean, Chive goes through some development, so, but she's kind of like girl bossing from the beginning, to be honest. So and there's like little bits here and there. You can see that there are touches of these stories here and there, like when Licorice lost his father as well, due to illness, and like a critique of the medical system and the bills that had to get paid and that sort of thing. It's like, oh, you know, you're touching upon it, but then it never comes up again, I suppose. Which I understand why, because it's meant to be a comfy game. We're not here to make you cry. It's not here to make you cry. It's here to make you sort of relax into like a beanbag chair. But at the same time, that is the sort of stories I do like engage and like the most, I think. That's the sort of stories where I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I like this. But I understand why they don't do it all the same. Yeah, where was I going with this? I don't know. I think Button City's art style is quite nice as well. The sort of like low poly makes it very nostalgic, doesn't it? You start looking at it and it feels very reminiscent of things in the past, nostalgic. I'm not sure nostalgic ages is quite the right word, but of times gone by, etc, etc. I will say I definitely had to fight the camera quite a few times, because the controls over the camera feel very weird. Sometimes it would like spin around and zoom in into like a completely not framing the entire scene, and I'm just like, what is going on? But it's not too difficult. Again, there's not much mechanical difficulty in the actual game itself, I think. It only really appears in GobaBots, where it becomes increasingly difficult to aim, and, you know, it's difficult to figure out exactly what's going on, because you can't see most of what's going on. But yeah, I hope there's a sequel coming out where it's like Button City Soccer Champions or Soccer Stars or something. That I'm a bit more interested. Well, I'm interested to see how they do it, because that seems like the actual main crux of a soccer game is much more mechanical based, maybe. But it's meant to be a sort of like a light-hearted, I think they described it as like Persona-esque, where you got like a calendar system and you're training, etc, etc. I think I'm interested to see how that goes. Would I play it? Maybe. I can certainly see myself doing so. But what else to talk about game? I think the music was actually pretty good as well. I liked a lot of the dance track musics. What else? I don't know. I guess it really just like sort of taps into sort of comfy nostalgia feeling. It's got cute, colourful cast of characters, low poly, a very adorable art style. It like has a very sort of nostalgic feel of like early 90s, 80s maybe, late 80s for people, which I would say is a bit before my time. Arcades weren't so big, except for during like holidays maybe for me. But like I think that would resonate with a lot of people, of that sort of very nostalgic feeling. And yeah, it's very nice to sort of like basically reviving your days as a child, those carefree days as a child where you were just sort of going around and doing like silly hijinks here and there. I think its humour is quite funny as well. It's very sort of silly is perhaps how I would describe it. There's a lot of like off the cuff comments, but again, there's nothing like crazy. I think there was nothing where you may go like, what? It's just, there are things that you have like a ha ha ha, I like chuckle to, in my opinion. And I think that's nice. I think every choice into this game, whether on its own or not, would make something that you personally are more or less engaged in. But it all does very well to feed into the overall goal of what it's trying to achieve, of being like a very comfy, nostalgic feeling, warm feeling game. And it does it quite well, I would say. I still would hesitantly not recommend it to everyone, because I think some people may get intensely bored in the game. There's not much in the way of like deeper substance to that sort of thing, and if that's what you're looking for in a game, you should not be playing Button City. It should be, if you're wanting to like unwind, relax, having a nostalgic trip, if anything, this is the sort of game for you. Yeah, I think my main critiques, which sort of like stand outside of a realm of this is what it's trying to like go for, is very much just sort of to do with like quality of life. Like, it is annoying or tiresome, I suppose, constantly going back and forth for these fetch quest style quests. And it is a bit of a shame that there is no easy way to look up who a character is, because you just need to have some sort of encyclopedic memory of every single character and their name. And sometimes it's a little bit unclear exactly what you need to do, but that's, again, there's not too much you have to do at the end, so it's like easy to sort out. Methinks. Yeah. I don't know what else I was going to say about that, but yeah, Button City. I don't know. It's a nice experience. It's a nice, warm, cozy experience. Who's my favourite character? Good question. I think it's Cilantro. She's like a conspiracy theorist or something. But she is, again, just a kid. She's sort of playing make-believe as like a grand conspiracy detective. I actually really liked the Tough Squad as well, to be honest. They're just like so cutely how supportive they are of each other, especially when you see them towards the end game, because they're very much friendly rivals. They're not going to be like bitter rivals. Again, this is a very like sort of soft, Saturday morning cartoon sort of game, eh? Anyway, on that note, I guess I'll round this episode off here. There's not much else to say about Button City. If it sounds like your sort of game, I think you'll enjoy it. If it doesn't sound like your sort of game, it's probably not for you, to be honest. I think it wears its heart on its sleeve. It's very clear what it is, I think, from the get-go, and what it's trying to be. And if that appeals to you, play it. If that doesn't, then you'll have to look elsewhere, I think. But I enjoyed it. I think it was a nice time. It was very chill, relaxing, and just a lot of walking, if anything. But if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.